anyone on YouTube?
One person.
One
Waiting
person.
for a name.
All right, let's see. I don't think we have anyone on Teams. Okay, let's stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Bob, would you?
Bow our heads. Again, Father, we thank you for this day you've given us. We pray for those people who have been flooded during these heavy storms we had. We just ask for guardian angels to give them strength and guidance. Be with our cellular patrol squadron this evening as we continue our march with our mission. Be with those that are en route for safety. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, welcome everyone. Today we will dedicate our meeting to emergency services. Before we start the topic of emergency services, I'll give you updates on our unit. First of all, SUI, subordinate unit inspection, which was done in August, is completed. All discrepancies were addressed. Great thanks to Mike Swift. He helped me a lot with administrative part of discrepancies, mostly related to some of the files we have in our office were outdated and were supposed to be destroyed, but we still kept them in boxes due for destruction, but the inspector picked on that. Other discrepancy related to aerospace education program, in both internal and external, it's still to be corrected by means of hiring internally an aerospace education officer, which I'll be talking about separately. So let's get an update on aircraft status. Lon, do you have any updates?
Yeah, I was just out there and changed the detector for another year now, or the carbon monoxide detector, and logged that in AMRAD. So that's the only thing that's really popped up. We got like about 25 hours left before the annual / 100-hour inspections due. I don't see anybody, well, somebody has scheduled it, I guess, next Saturday.
I scheduled it for tomorrow. I will have some more rides for Squadron 20 at Chino. So I'll fly tomorrow for a couple of hours. So I'll fly to Chino, do a couple of more rides and come back. There is a discrepancy which I didn't file yet, and I will. It's related to the exhaust pipe. The one on the right side, it's almost burned through. So I'll send you the picture for that. And last meeting we talked about the dimming for the primary display for the PFD.
Yeah.
In poor lighting situation, the brightness on PFD is significantly lower comparing to the MFD. We actually, after the meeting last week, we went to the hangar and Mike demonstrated how to compensate for poor brightness on PFD. Basically, you turn the brightness control for the instruments all the way up, and it makes it possible to operate the aircraft in bad lighting conditions. Otherwise, if you have it somewhere in the middle, like in our case at IPL mission, at early in the day when the sun just rising up, the brightness was all over the place. So that is something to keep in mind for those who will be flying the aircraft, especially in the morning or at night. So
Yeah, Mike and I have talked about that in length, and we decided to close the discrepancy, and he probably talked in length to you guys about where to set that knob to get the best brightness out of it.
that works, but I think we need to really for all the pilots flying the aircraft, maybe sending an email outlining the issue to the group pilots at least, outlining how to troubleshoot it and prevent aircraft from going all the way to the darkness in the most important part of the flight. Because
does that instrument have a CNI light to bright and dim?
yeah, there is a light sensor.
And the one is that I had it go bad on my airplane for a radio, had to be replaced, and that little eye starts to fail, and it doesn't know which way to go.
It knows which way to go. It's just the reaction time is kind of slow, and the brightness doesn't go all the way up even in a perfect day. So if you compare side by side, PFD is about 10 or maybe 10-15% lower brightness than MFD. So it's viable. It's functional, but I think we need to start planning. Maybe raise the awareness of the wing maintenance that we have to start planning for replacement on the PFD side. If sensor can be replaced, good. If not,
Yeah,
whole PFD
I can reach out to Gary Cinnamon and ask him if we can order a new one.
Right, because I believe the MFD was already replaced, right?
The MFD? No.
On that airplane. Mike mentioned that based on records, looks like MFD has been serviced on the 740 Charlie.
That could be. I don't know.
Okay, so the next item related to maintenance is about oil top-up. So there is a new policy for Air Force funded missions versus self-funded missions. So for self-funded missions, if we have oil in the aircraft, we probably should start running like a little fund, because the wing will not compensate us for that oil anymore. So it will be our own expense, and whomever from outside of our squadron taking oil should basically put $10 into our donations jar. So I will distribute an email raising attention to that. And if it's a funded mission, the practice as requested by the wing should be whenever you are refueling the aircraft, check the oil and buy oil at the same time as you buy fuel. Also, just to keep track of oil usage for this specific aircraft, Mike have placed a log worksheet into the front of the whole logbook, where basically whenever you top off the oil, write the date and quantity of oil you put into the aircraft.
Yeah, can I add some things here? Okay, so back to the buying of oil. I told Gary that funded or non-funded, when you're filling up with gas after a mission, in my experience is that there's nowhere to buy oil. I mean, you would have to call the truck out to service your plane, then they charge you more to fill up your plane, and they may or may not have oil unless you tell them to bring you oil out, right? So there's definitely a logistical issue there. And when I talked to Gary, walked him through that, is that he said, well, he said during your oil changes in 100 hour, you don't, I mean, buy a full case of oil, and we only use 9 quarts out of that case, and then you can have the rest of them. So how we would get the, people to log it, that's, I think, been the hardest thing. I mean, all I got to do is put it into the log sheet. I mean, you're filling out the AF anyway, and but last month there was only 2 quarts of oil that were logged in the log sheet. Now, Mike seems to think that it's burning a lot more than that, and because last month I forgot we did 30 hours of flying or something like that, and if we only burn 2 quarts, that's pretty good. But I think we burn more than that.
I think pilots do not log the oil unless they buy it.
I don't even know if they would then, because like at IPL, every time that I've ever gone down to IPL and I was the mission pilot, I had them give me 2 quarts of oil, no matter what, because then you always had 2 more quarts, and you got 3 or 4 missions down there, and if you do that, you get 6 quarts of oil to come back home with. I mean, that's in the past. So I don't know what you guys did down there, if you bought any oil or not.
We did all of the air crews at least added 1 quart of oil from my recollection. And I got a call from maintenance officer from John Wayne, Richard, and he asked me if we used any oil. I said, as far as I remember, PIC have put at least 1 quart of the oil from the aircraft stash. And he said, well, that's a Squadron oil, and we're not going to get reimbursed for that. How are you going to compensate for it? Like, we cannot, at IPL mission specifically, there is no service at the time we are departing. So for us, that's the only source, what we were supposed to do. Probably when the FBO is open, you just go by and put it back, and that's one option. So I'll also raise the same question to Gary Cinnamon, see what he comes back with, because there are many circumstances when there is no full service, and full service is always more expensive, and sometimes they just don't have oil.
Right.
Here's the problem you have when you start looking at oil for your aircraft, and you're going into either a self-server, like you say, an airport that's going to have service for you. They're only going to carry certain kinds of oil. They may only carry 100 weight, and yet you're using 2050 or 1550. That's the problem, and maintenance doesn't think about this. Nobody thinks about it. So are you just going to buy the 50 weight oil, which is 100W, and stick it in the airplane, and then use that, and then try and get nice oil pressure when it's nice and cold outside without a heater on the block to keep it warm? You know, you're gonna be running some dry cylinders for a while, and it's real thick, especially your cam, and the cam is what wears out the engine. It's not in a bearing; it's only between 2 halves of aluminum with an oil film on it.
So I think we've always tried to keep 2 quarts of oil in the back, for emergencies. I don't know if people are using that, or it sounds like the half a case of oil that we had just sitting in the hangar, people were using that, and that's where the rub comes, because they don't log it. I mean, that's one thing about using it, but you gotta log it. And I was still questioning the oil consumption of this aircraft, but I just looked again at the last oil analysis sheet, and it's got a high iron content in the oil analysis. So it's not in the the green smiley face anymore. Now it's got a little yellow thing there on iron in the oil. So there may be, and the engine's only got like 500 hours on it. I don't know, there may be something going on there. We'll have to see what the next oil analysis says.
Okay.
That's steel on steel, giving you the iron. You got iron, it's steel on steel. You're not going to find much aluminum, because that's from the camshaft, or it's tappets.
I don't know what.
That's the only thing that's going to produce iron, because the bearings are all Babbitt bearings, and it's rod bearings, and the only thing you have steel on steel are the rings and the wear on the cylinder walls, and then you have tappets on the cam. That's the only steel well you're going to have.
Yeah, so I've heard nothing that they did not, break the engine in properly. I mean, it's been running for 500 hours, and it's just now that we're starting to think that it may be burning more oil. But I'm not convinced that it is yet at this point, burning more oil than it's supposed to, because, putting in a quart every 20 hours is not bad.
Yeah, but in my experience, I've been flying cadets in December pretty intensively, so like I don't know how many days in a row I have flown. Don't recall, like at least 4 days, four missions, 4 days, and each day was at least 3 or 4 sorties. So I only put maybe a quart of oil over the course of 4 days. I check the oil level after every flight. So I'm not convinced either that it makes it burns too much.
Yeah, we'll keep watching both the consumption, the best that we are able to, and then the next oil change, then we'll know if it continues to have a high iron
Yeah.
content.
The other maintenance related item noticed during the IPL is the front strut. Looks like it's spitting out some grease. Last time I have flown the aircraft last week, I have wiped the grease off, and we'll see if more grease comes from the strut.
From the strut?
Not strut, from what is it called?
Tire?
No. The amortization thing.
Is it the
Nose gear?
No, front
yoke?
gear.
from the yoke itself? No, if it's the cylinder strut that goes up inside, that's hydraulic oil that's leaking out through the seal, especially when it's cold like today.
Yeah, it looks
And it
like
leaks out, and then you pick up dirt, and it makes it look like grease.
nose wheel strut looks like
It's
producing
hydraulic
some.
oil, 5806 and or 5606, and then you get dirt on it, and it looks black. It looks
Yeah.
like grease.
And
but
it's
it's
hard
not.
to wipe off.
It's caked on. So those strut, you should take and wipe the struts down on a monthly basis to keep the dirt off. It keeps the seals from deteriorating.
I used to do it every flight, clean it, the shiny portion.
Yeah, that's what probably most pilots want to do.
Because I've pulled, back when we were in Redlands, all the logistics that it takes to get to flight. So here I am pulling the plane out of the hangar, and I go into a turn, and all of a sudden, goosh, the whole nose strut sinks down, and hydraulic fluid everywhere. It happens.
They make fluorocarbon steel, gaskets now. They're a little bit more expensive, but they last longer than a normal neoprene seal. And then you can use, there's some special oil that you can take and put in the struts, and it keeps all of those neoprene seals flexible, and they will help last along. But that's about $50 for a pint, and it's good for 3 struts.
Okay. Oh, that's something to keep in mind.
And
Next
your maintenance guy knows what it is. I can look it up for you. But if you want to try and keep the struts in good condition, I tried to get my guy on my annual, take and do that. He's going to do it on the next one. And I'm going to change out that 5607 set for some different oil. Let me see what I can find here.
Alright. Next item on my agenda is our Squadron website address. So based on 10 votes, sq5.gov.gov is leading. If you'd like to cast your vote, today is the deadline. This form was distributed via Teams and via email to the whole squadron. If you didn't receive the email, let me know. But reminder again, check your copy mail regularly, at least maybe daily, because important stuff comes through that channel mostly. All right. So the current leader is sq5.gov.gov. Next topic, we have 2 open positions in the squadron which we need to fill urgently. Probably the most pressing is financial officer. It's very easy job, and I promise I'll train you real well. You'll be surprised how easy it is actually. So the formal duties include collecting and depositing squadron dues, basically collecting cash or check, giving the receipt to the member who gave the payment, and depositing it to the Chase Bank on your way home, on whatever next business day, and then generating a simple report which goes to the Wing Finance. Every month or so, it's a good idea to look and reconcile our budget. Very simple. We have one source of income, members' dues, and very few expense items, basically rent for the facility and the hangar, and internet as utilities. So those numbers rarely change. If they change, we get notified by the Wing Finance, and basically we adjust our spending ledger, and we just need to make sure our expenses never exceed our balance. So if we approach that borderline, the responsibility of finance officer to raise it to finance committee, basically call a meeting for the finance committee where we will discuss the options to address the deficit for the budget. And once a year, we basically generate a budget and submit it along with Form 172 to the Wing Finance and get their approval on that. And run every quarter a finance meeting for about half an hour where we discuss the present issues if there are any. I am acting finance officer for the group. In the group, we do a little bit more. We reimburse group commander for the expenses he may incur. So there's one little extra step on top of what I discussed. So it's super easy job. And it would help me a lot because I am currently in a conflict. I'm not supposed to be acting as finance officer, but I do because nobody else picks up that role. And I need to be deconflicted from that. So think about it, let me know. If nobody comes through, I will just pick randomly one of the actively coming members to the meetings. Because you have to be in a meeting to collect dues, right? All right, any questions? Addressed to me. Next one, I need to fill the role of aerospace education officer. It's actually, in my opinion, one of the fun roles. It does require an involvement with local schools, maybe colleges. I'll give you some examples. What I have done over the past 3 months, it's not that big of a deal. Basically, you engage with the school or with a group of teachers at the school and arrange a meeting once a quarter, once a month, whatever you're up to, and present about airspace topic to the group, present about CUP missions and some success stories in aerospace development. Any topic works. Space exploration, far planets found which resembles what Earth is, and so on and so forth. The program for aerospace education is twofold. It's internal for the squadron. We are required to have it. And it entails basically having airspace related topic once a month in our regular meetings. We have 4th week of each month allocated for that matter. And we can pick any topic of our members' interest to that, or we just work towards every member achieving the Yager award. Chris can tell us, I believe only few members have that currently.
Yeah, I was the only one who did it last year. So.
Yeah, so I have done it a long time at the previous squadron. It's easy to achieve. It's basically self-study guide and one presentation to go through on LMS and a test to complete. The test is pretty intense, but it's open book. It's kind of fun. You refresh yourself on the history of space aircraft development, flight, airspace, space exploration, and so on and so forth. And it makes it easier to talk to the public about these matters. So the duties for Airspace Education Officer include running internal program and external, promoting Yager award within the squadron. Ultimately, we would like to have every member achieve that milestone, and so we can report to the wing aerospace at the end of our fiscal year. And creating and running with the external program where you basically go to schools and present about aerospace matters to teachers and students. Would be fun, actually. That's another opportunity to fly, is to create teacher orientation program flights, which requires enrolling teachers in a specializing in maybe some STEM program, any subject. I believe there is no restriction on that, but the teacher has to be enrolled as aerospace education member with CEP. Usually school pays that membership. It's very affordable, like I believe it's like about $40 a year. And it gives an opportunity to teachers to actually fly in CAP aircraft, and for the pilots to introduce teachers to flight. So again, think about it. If no volunteers by next meeting, I will appoint one. Any questions? Again, let me know. I will guide you through the training for both positions, and I can be your mentor for you to achieve a technician rank in this specific occupation. Questions? Comments? All right, next fun subject. This month we have 5 Tuesdays, which means on January 31st we will have Nighthawk. We will gather at the hangar, cook some burgers, hot dogs, talk about aviation in more informal environment. And if any members already on board at the time, we can resume the tradition of getting the night currency back. So if anyone would like to volunteer and cook burgers and hot dogs, let me know. We will start running the roster on who will attend, so we know how much food we have to bring. Questions, suggestions? All right. Let's go to core subject for today's meeting, emergency services. You may know that there is an open mission actually for disaster relief. In California, we have had flood, we had mudslides, significant damage to multiple communities. So California Wing is heavily involved in that. I believe there is a participation from Oregon Wing up north helping with this mission. If you are already a qualified mission pilot, transport mission pilot, LBD, any ground team related role which may be required for these missions, you may receive a phone call, text message, email asking if you are available for specific day. And if you are available, participate in it. You get good credit for it. There was a request for air crew multiple days. Today actually there was a request for transport mission pilot. I wish I was available. I would definitely do that. It was a fun flight, going to Comaria, pick up 2 members of CEP and flying them to Santa Maria Airport, and then returning to the base. So easy, nice weather for flying, and it's fully funded. Another topic related to emergency services, there is a Group 6 SAREX scheduled for February 4th and 5th. It will be held at Merced Airport, hosted by the Squadron 147. So I posted on our Teams channel for emergency services for SAREXs all the information available. there is a form you would need to submit to the IC of that event. Let me know if anyone is interested. I may help you by joining forces and taking our aircraft to that event, so you can get your mission scanner or mission observer rating or any other rating you would like to pursue. Questions?
It's up at Fresno. Merced, Fresno.
Yeah. All right. Again, if you do have any questions, let me know. Again, related to emergency services, there will be another counter-drug mission for Group 3. Will run from March 3rd through March 5th. If you are qualified as counter-drug air crew, you may want to refresh that briefing for the current fiscal year, and feel free to reach out to Terry. He will put you on a crew. As again, you can be an MO, mission pilot, or transport mission pilot, or actually both. Any questions, you may reach out to Terry directly. He will guide you through the steps involved in qualification as counter-drug participant. I believe the requirement is you have to be an active member for at least 2 years and have no issues with law enforcement, and pilot and MO in good standing. All right, we can move to mission scanner topic. I would like to give a refresh for new members specifically what it takes to become a mission scanner, and it's actually a prerequisite for you to be a mission pilot anyway. Mission scanner gives you an opportunity to participate in real world scenarios like disaster relief mission, which is ongoing today, and any search and rescue missions which we may have. Sometimes scanners get involved in counter-drug missions, in border patrol missions, in what should I call it? The sea border patrol. So, speaking of mission scanner, there is a very good source of information available on Hawaii Wing website. They have a series of scanner training videos. I checked a few of them. They're extremely well composed. You can just put them on 20% faster speed, and you can go through them rather quickly. It clarifies a lot of matters covered in the mission aircrew training guide. If you are already a pilot, it's super easy for you. You may want to focus on things like scanning techniques and maybe navigation, position determination as it relates to the scanner job. And besides just acting as a scanner, which basically identifying a particular feature on a surface or on the water and whatnot, you may also act as a photographer. There is also a course available for aerial photography, where in damage assessment is extremely important role. There are reports from IC on the present disaster relief mission talking about how many images were taken and uploaded to FEMA, and what kind of impact it created, etc. So that's a real opportunity to do something for the community and help with specific disaster we're having on hands today. Questions so far on mission scanner? Anyone started the training from new pilots? Chris is active mission scanner, and you completed demo also, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's review quickly what involves in scanner duties and responsibilities in CAP missions. I used Hawaii Wing materials for that purpose. We have online Jason and Maria. I'll share my screen for them. There you go. Jason, Mario, can you see the slides? Okay, they can. So let's keep that. So some of the references you may find online, CAP Mission Scanner task guides. I think they backdated to 2017, haven't been updated since that. You can look up. I will share through Teams all these materials, so you'll be able to look them through at your leisure time. Once you feel you are ready to cover these topics, reach out to Mike Swift. He can actually assess your knowledge and sign you off on most of these items. And reach out to Terry so we can schedule your flight under the ongoing onboarding mission for search and rescue and disaster relief. So we actually had a flight, myself, Terry, and Jessica last week. She was signing off on mission scanner role, and I got a couple of sign-offs on mission pilot. So let's move forward. So additional help would be by referencing these materials. Some of the Federal Aviation Regulations, Airman's Information Manual, FAA Pilot Handbook, CAP Regulation 70-1 for flight operations, 60-3 for emergency services, 100-1 for communications, and California Wing Communications Plan as applicable for specific mission. So examples of missions where mission scanners can be helpful. Of course, search and rescue, not a lot of those happening these days, but disaster response, counter-drag, not so much in WADS for mission scanner, but as mission observer, you can certainly participate in that. Transport operations as additional help to the pilot, and visual observer on the pilot side or in the back seat as a scanner. So duties include area scanning, airborne photography, use of sectional maps or for flight or other flight bag, electronic flight bag as of your preference, where you would note latitudes and longitudes for specific observations. And of course, helping in cockpit resource management as additional eyes outside of the cockpit, as well as making sure that no mishaps are happening due to maybe negligence of specific elements outside, like traffic or proximity of surface, etc. So to become a trainee, you have to complete general emergency services training, have to be at least 18 years old of age, must be enrolled in specific position on Squadron for mission scanner, and should have my authorization or my deputy commander's authorization in my absence to begin that onboarding. So additional requirements you will see on Squidder, I'll show you later, include FEMA IS 100B and IS 700A courses, which you can complete at your own time, at your own pace, and get actual certificate from FEMA. We can cover that in the next meeting in more detail, unless we have time today. You also have to complete CAP aircraft ground handling course and have it on your checked off items list. Once you complete FAM and prep part, so basically you sit with Mike and sign off on preliminary elements, you would be required to participate in exercises. You have to participate in 2 missions. One of them can be SAREX, one of them can be current annual SAR-DR onboarding mission, which we have running. And for SAREX, one coming in February, and for the ongoing mission, reach out to Terry to schedule his time and get yourself signed off. And basically, you'll be able to get it done in no time. It doesn't take a lot of effort. So the primary role for the mission scanner is incident commander's eyes and ears in the field. So the mission aircraft aircrew exists to put the scanners in position to find the crash site victim or report damage. What it means, basically the pilot flies the aircraft to specific area, and the scanner has to find what we are looking for. So the pilot's role is to put eyes of a scanner on the specific target. It's actually an interesting exercise for the mission pilot. I had an opportunity to experience it myself. It's not that easy, basically at first, but then you kind of get a hang of it. Most common maneuver would be basically turnaround point. So once we know where we are looking for, we start flying around that area until the mission scanner actually identified the target and recorded the coordinates in the mission log. So ideally, there is a mission observer sitting in the right seat and at least one scanner sitting in the back, either left or right. And the pilot should be aware where the best position for the scanner to be, and enable the scanner to do to perform his duty, and make sure the scanner stays really in a good health, doesn't get motion sickness, and doesn't get tired too fast. So it's important also for mission pilot to actually be aware what his crew is doing and how they feel. So in aircraft like 206, we may have 2 scanners, weight and balance permitting, one covering each side of the aircraft. But on 182, for example, it could be challenging. If we put less fuel, we may not have enough time coverage for the mission. So most likely, if flying 182, there will be a single scanner sitting in the back. Sometimes the scanner may be sitting in the right seat, but scanner cannot perform the duties of the observer. Normally, scanner is used in visual searches. Scanner can be used in ELT searches. So knowledge and understanding how to operate directional finder may be a good skill, but it's more suitable. Oh, that's not good. Thanks, Chris. I lost mouse too. Technology. reset that Apple TV. It's coming up. Now we also have Jessica joining. I still have sharing paused. Guys, on Teams, can you see the slides? Okay. Now let it start. How about now? That's funny. Teams is acting out. Okay, maybe better to switch to YouTube. Came through? Good. All right. So for aerial photographer, basically it's self-explanatory, right? So you capture usable imagery and a video of targets. And it's additional rating you would have to pursue and get signed off as a qualified aerial photographer. Additional responsibility for photographer, of course, to make sure that the camera is in working order. So charging the batteries is a good idea, clearing the memory cards, formatting them, etc. And making sure that you have enough memory cards for the mission. Also, additional responsibility includes pre-flighting crew emergency equipment. So whatever is on aircraft for emergency equipment, from emergency equipment point of view, falls on photographer and guides the crew to position the aircraft to provide the most useful images of the objective. So photographer may tell pilot what would be the best angle, and pilot would comply, of course, as long as it's safe for the mission and for the crew. So typical seating includes a pilot in the front left, observer in the front right, scanner number 1, where aerial photographer sits in the left behind the pilot, and scanner number 2 behind the observer. Duty limitations exist per CAP regulations. So mission pilots and all crew members, including scanners, should comply. The duty day begins when the aircrew member reports to the mission, briefing, or other official duty, and ends when engines are shut down at the end of the mission, mission leg, or series of missions. The maximum length of the crew duty day is 14 hours of official CAP duty. May be extended to 16 hours with concurrence of all crew members and wing leadership. 9 hours of scheduled flight time maximum should not be exceeded. Crew rest. Crew must have 10 hours of crew rest between the last official CAP duty and the first official CAP duty, the next duty period. Transportation to from quarters is not an official duty. So basically, for you, driving from home to the airport is not counted as a duty. We have to follow standard safe practices. So if we are suffering from any illness or symptoms of illness which may affect our performance, stay home. Don't knock it off, don't go. If you're on medication, which may increase the negative effects of flight, sitting in the back can be very tiring, and Jessica can attest to that. So after just an hour flight, it gets to you. Even from my experience flying as an observer in a right seat and just keeping your eyes outside of the cabin all the time on specific target, looking for something, puts a different kind of stress on us. Do we have any psychological, emotional factors which may affect the performance? Stress, one of them, maybe too much work, overdue assignment at your primary job, etc. Alcohol. Any consumed alcohol within the last 8 hours? I believe it has been increased in the recent regulation. I'll have to look back, but it would be covered, I believe, in 70-1. Fatigue. Did we get enough sleep and rest? And if we have any emotionally upset crew member, maybe things are not going well at home, kids not performing as desired at school, and many other options contributing to that. Peacetime disaster relief missions. As mentioned earlier, damage assessments, communications like Hybird, for example, transportation, bringing crew members to remote site, participating in search and rescue operations, coordinated through Air Force Rescue Coordination Center, AFRCC, which coordinates and implements National Search and Rescue Plan. So basically, whenever there is a mission, it comes from AFRCC to the wing, to the region, to the wing, and then coordinated to specific units. Counter-drug operations, as mentioned before, Border Patrol, U.S. Forest Service, and many more. Homeland Security, coordinated through National Operations Center, additional national agencies which may be involved, Red Cross, Salvation Army, and so on and so forth. Important aspect related to liability coverage and mishap reporting. So liability is covered by Federal Employee Compensation Act, which is a workers' compensation, and covers injuries or death during the Air Force assigned missions. Commercial insurance for corporate missions provides coverage depending on mission types, and it's an objective for the crew to raise this matter before every mission to your incident command and clarify it for your benefit.
You have death insurance with a private company, you can get a waiver that's added to your policy to cover you for flying. May not be much, but you should be on it, otherwise they may not pay.
So basically, if you have your own coverage, it may be superseded by the FTCA.
Well, I carried accident insurance on a policy, and I had an exemption for flying, so I was covered under any flying accident, but it was with the airlines or private flying. As far as what you've got there, it's up to the insurance company to see who's going to pay for what. But basically, the first one you've got is going to be the government compensation, workers' comp. They always put worker comp first, and then they come in second.
Most insurance companies don't insure pilots unless you have that rider.
That's
Right,
That's
actually,
what we're saying. You
that's
gotta
also-
make sure it's there.
Also, very important for you, once you become a pilot, check your life insurance. If they actually approve your new engagement as a pilot. In my case, there was a rider stating that as long as I started flying 5 years or more after my policy was underwritten, they do accept that new type of activity is acceptable. But for many new policies, you may have to tell the insurance provider about your plans to be an active pilot.
And a lot of times too, it depends if you're in a commercial business, Civil Air Patrol. Normally they know that Civil Air Patrol is pretty safe, and they'll give you a rider if you say I'm flying with the Civil Air Patrol.
Okay. Additional liability coverage is provided by Federal Tort Claims Act. COP members acting within the scope of their duties on COP operation missions are covered. It has to be Air Force assigned mission, and commercial insurance for corporate missions covers members in the event of a lawsuit. That's probably what you are referring to. Refer to Copper 900-5, which talks in details about COP insurance and benefits program. COP aviation liability insurance. All COP members involved in COP aviation corporate missions and acting under the scope of COP regulations are protected under this policy. This includes COP aircrew members, pilots, check pilots, instructor pilots, COP maintenance personnel, and COP flight release officials. More on liability, it's extremely important to report all mishaps, and we may actually talk about mishaps and reporting process in more detail in our next safety meeting. Basically anything affecting the safety, such as, for example, attempting to taxi with anything attached to the airplane which is not supposed to be attached is a mishap and may need to be reported. There was an event, a story told by my PIC at the IPL mission when the aircrew taxied without activating the runway lighting and taxiway lighting, and they actually rolled off the taxiway to the ditch. They didn't damage any aircraft, nobody got hurt. They pulled the aircraft back on a pavement, but it would be a reportable mishap. And the crew was supposed to be grounded for that, in my opinion, but they weren't. Times were different, maybe policies were not so strong or whatnot, but that qualifies as a mishap. And the reporting process is done according to COP 160-2 and according to supplement provided by the wing. So in our case, we would need to report to our safety officer of our unit, and safety officer would report upstream. Follow all the rules and regulations during the missions, and that's actually important to receive the coverage. If we violate any rules or regulations, we may not get covered by the insurance. Operational agreements. So what is involved from operational point of view? There are national, regional, and state levels, and according to 60-3 COP emergency services and training and operations missions, it's all formalized through agencies' chains of commands, facilitate operations plans, through implementation, and agreements approved and signed at all levels. I think we can stop here. We are at the top of the hour. We will continue in the next emergency services event, which will be the first meeting of February. The next meeting will be aerospace education, then Nighthawk, and then we'll resume emergency services. You don't have to really follow through this pace. I will share these details. Any new members, feel free to go through it. Reach out to me, Mike, Chris, if you need help navigating documentation and SQTR system, a qualification system. Don't stall yourself. I mean, sooner you get rated, you get qualified, more you get from the CAP as organization. More ratings you get, more involvement you will receive, having participations in real life scenarios. Questions, comments? All right. Thank you, everybody. Meeting is over.
Good job.
Have a good day.